What is up, harvesters? Welcome back to the subscribers, and if you're new here, welcome to Hobby Harvest. My name is Ken. So today I want to talk about identifying areas of the woods that are going to give you an absolutely high probability of seeing deer if you set your stand up there. And so we're going to talk about 5 locations that these things happen naturally in the woods. So this will work on public and private land. And then we're going to get into 4 ways that you can improve these even more or create them from scratch on your own property. So let's get into it. Number 1 is going to be the simplest thing. I've been hunting for, this will be my 26th deer season, and I've been using this every single one of those years. And this is the thing that majority of hunters out there are utilizing to set up their stand locations, and that is to simply go in the woods, see where a bunch of deer trails come together at a point where there seems to be an intersection in the woods, set your stand up there, hunt that for whatever reason that is a natural area of attraction or a natural squeeze point in the woods. That is going to improve your chances at seeing deer if you can sit in an area where 2, 3, 4 trails come together instead of just sitting on one solo trail. So once we understand where these areas of the woods are, we want to start looking how these relate to these other things I'm going to talk about in the video. So number 2 is edge of cover. So when you have a transitional edge in cover, be it from an ag field into the woods, be it from like a swamp into the woods, whatever, wherever there is a transitional edge in the woods, this is somewhere that is a great area to hunt because deer absolutely love edge. They love to use it to travel, so you can actually hunt the edge of the edge and the deer will travel along that, and that is a great place to sit. Now ideally when you're looking for these, you're looking for things that have a lot of stem count below 6 feet. So you want stem count at the deer's level, and then they will slip through this cover and follow these edge lines. You don't just want a big blob of cover, you want these to be kind of elongated so you can predict the movement through them. But deer will slip through those. The majority of the bucks that I have shot in the morning as they're slipping through these edges, returning to their bedding areas, but they will also use these to travel to their food sources in the afternoon as well. So just a great place to set up a stand location. So thirdly, we want to look at elevation change. So some guys are hunting areas that are very flat. I, on my northwestern Wisconsin property, am hunting a ton of topography up there. We actually have a ground blind that we call the funnel because topography funnels the deer right through a squeeze point, and it is an awesome place to have a stand location, or in this case a ground blind, because the elevation's so high we don't have to go up into a tree, because being on the ground you're already so much higher than where the deer are coming through beneath you in the topography. But so this is something you want to look at. Deer do not want to run up a steep hill, so they will follow the contour lines on a topography map in order to save that energy, not have to run up a steep hill, and will follow those pinch points where you can see them naturally occurring on a topo map. So check those out. And then if you can add that together with that thick cover and those edges of cover, which you can in some areas, because a lot of areas where there's ag, they use the bottoms of this topography for their fields, and then as it gets steeper you can't put farm equipment on that either, so that's also going to create an edge in that topography. Excellent place if like the 2 of those hills converge to set up a stand location there. Now let's get into number 4. So number 4 is obstructions in the woods. Now this could be something like a fence that's man-made, that it's just naturally along a field edge, so again we're talking about edge there, but it can also be a downed tree. So one of my most successful stand locations has this old pine tree that died and fell over many years ago, and it creates this natural funnel through a certain part of the woods there. Again, this is being added to the edge of cover that meets up with that as well. So we're kind of putting all these things together to really find this ideal location. But that tree fell over, and the deer could hop over it at this point. Not many of the branches are left on it. It's kind of rotten, but they are more likely to walk around that downed tree than they are to jump over it. Again, they're just trying to save calories out there. They work hard for that food that they find, and they don't want to burn it up just jumping over a tree when they could very easily walk around it. So if there's an area in the woods, maybe there was some wind damage or whatever that's knocked over some trees, you can hunt whatever the easiest path is through all of those downed trees in the woods, because that is exactly where the deer are going to move through that area. And if this is like fresh wind damage where the tops of these trees are still green and laying on the ground, excellent food source to hunt. Those deer absolutely love eating those treetops. We always joke that a chainsaw in the woods is almost like a dinner bell to deer because they know that those trees are getting dropped. They'll come in there a few hours later, maybe that night, and they're going to nibble off the tops of those trees because you just put all those nice young tender tops down at their level for them. So again, definitely use these obstructions in the woods, be it a fence, be it a down tree, whatever you have to work with. Maybe it's a rocky outcropping or something too in your area if you're hunting an area like that. But definitely use these to predict where the deer are going to pinch through or squeeze through a point and set up your stand there. You're going to see deer. So the last naturally occurring location we're going to talk about has to do with water. So if you can set up along like the edge of a lake, if you can set up along the edge of like a river bottom or something, these are excellent places because although deer are great swimmers, they typically choose not to unless they have to. And so even if you set up along the edge of a lake, typically the edge of a lake will also have topography coming down. And so the deer are going to run that edge of water that's pinched between topography and the water. Excellent place to set up a stand. We have killed bucks in areas like that before on our property as well. The other thing is that if you have something like a river bottom, that's typically going to have a lot of thick cover next to it because it's getting more water than the rest of the land is in drought conditions. So it's going to be the thickest part of the woods. The deer are going to absolutely love being in there. Some of those big old bucks may never leave a river bottom like that. They don't care to go out to the ag field. They're going to stay down in that river bottom. They're going to just browse on the grasses and the shrubs that are growing in there, and that's where they'll live their entire life. That's how they got that big. So it's a great idea to hunt those lines, those water line edges, and that thick cover edge. Again, we're putting all of these things together. So lastly, we're going to get into how we can improve these things or how we can create them from scratch. And so the first thing on here is to create our own obstructions. Like I said, I had that pine tree. It naturally fell over. I didn't cut it over. Well, get a chainsaw out there, cut a tree down, and drop it to sort of guide the deer where you want them to go. I was up on a property this summer and they have a situation where they have this like area, it's maybe 75 yards wide through the woods, and then it's fields on either end, and the deer cutting through this 75-yard wide area, and that's great. But if you're hunting with a bow, you don't know which of the several deer trails coming through there are the ones that they're going to walk on. So I recommended that they drop a couple trees to sort of guide the path the deer have to take through that location. You'll get them to use a predominant trail that way. Now, we're not just like building a wall of rubble here of dead trees. What you would do is drop like one here, drop one here, and kind of make them behave like wing dams on the Mississippi. For those of you who are familiar with that, there's these underwater dams that sort of like guide the water and the current into the middle of the river so that the barges don't get stuck in like a silt bar, sandbar or something. So you're trying to do that with trees too. You're not going to completely block the flow of traffic of the deer running through the area, but you're going to more focus their movement down a single trail so that you can set up a bow stand and have them walk right underneath you. Now, you can also set up fences in the woods. Some guys do this. I don't recommend it. It's so much easier and cheaper to just drop a couple trees with a chainsaw if that's the terrain you have. Now, I get it. If you don't have big trees to drop, you might be more reliant on doing something else. But that gets me into the second thing we can do is if you have a very thick property, what you can do is simply thin out some trails in there. Now, don't make these like shooting lanes that just go straight for like 100 yards. You do want these to bend and weave naturally through the woods. So you can't see more than 10, 20, 30, 40 yards down the trail, depending on how thick it is in your area. But if you thin out these trails, deer are creatures of efficiency. They will follow down these trails, and you'll be able to put them exactly where you want them to be if you're in some like real thick, gnarly stuff. And so they also feel like they're in cover because you're not blasting these wide open. You just want them to be open enough that you as a human can walk down them easily. And then, of course, the deer are going to walk down them too, and you'll put them right where you want them to be. So then lastly, the third and fourth things are going to be ways that we can really spruce up a very specific area. And we're going to, of course, do that with a mock scrape and a water hole. So once you've kind of put all of the rest of this together to get these deer moving exactly where you want them, we're going to put up a mock scrape there. Now what that does is, if there are maybe a couple other like subordinate trails that the deer sometimes use, even though this is the predominant trail that they're using, with this mock scrape on this trail, the one you want them to use, if they come within say 50 yards of the area, they're going to want to go down that trail. They're going to want to just go bump that mock scrape on the way back, maybe, you know, really rub on it like some of the bucks do, but at least even the does will come and just bump their nose on it. The fawns seem to love them too. You're going to put them on the very specific trail you want them on, and that'll put them right in front of you, especially if we're talking about needing to be in like bow range here. With gun, I realize we have a lot bigger range. It might not matter which trail they come down, but this is going to put them right where you want them. The water hole, of course, too, especially if we're in an area that doesn't have a lot of water, that's now an attraction there for you as well to attract them to the area. But these are things that will make them want to come down this specific trail, grab a drink of water, bump their nose on that mock scrape. It's going to put them right on that very, very specific trail that you chose for them. And it's, of course, if you combine this with all of these other things, you are going to have the best stand location you have ever had. So if you guys feel like you got some value out of this video, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you like this video, YouTube thinks you're going to like this one, and I think you're going to like this one. So go see who's right, and I'll see you guys over there.